Happy Thanksgiving, Sheldon. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving. True Thanksgiving.
I will say, though, Americans definitely do Thanksgiving way better. It just seems like a way bigger deal. And maybe that's just envy looking at it from, a distance. But maybe it's because it's a Thursday, so it's that long weekend, Thursday, Friday. You obviously have the Friday off as well. I don't know, but the American Thanksgiving just seems like a way bigger deal. Add in like NFL football on that day too, the tradition of it all. Yeah, kind of jealous.
There was a doubleheader in the CFL on Thanksgiving Monday. What are you talking about? We had our football.
You are correct.
I'm John Chidley Hill.
And I got my voice back. I am Sheldon Alexander. And I would like to apologize for anybody that listened to last week's podcast because my voice sounded horrible. And not that it sounds great normally, but last week was horrible.
Did you know, Sheldon, that some of our You Killed It listeners think that you and I sound the same?
Really? I did not know.
Yeah.
I was unaware of this.
This past week, I got some comments along those lines. I was like, okay. I don't hear it, but then again, I guess, you hear your own voice. But apparently people think we sound similar.
Okay. All right. Sounds like a thing. I mean, despite the terrible voice, I feel like we should respond to some people because people were kind of coming back at us for our Zach and Amanda takes last week, right? Because I was very firm in the stance of, hey, overall Zach is a jerk, but in this instance, I was with Zach. I totally understood where Zach was coming from, and I said I didn't really understand a lot of the pushback that he was getting from people who were saying that this was sexist and he was trying to demean or belittle Amanda because she was a woman. I never really understood that, but we had a lot of people come back at us and they disagreed. Did you catch some of that too on social?
Yeah, I mean, the number one person who I saw was You Killed It superfan Lawrence Thomas.
Okay. Shout out to LT.
I love LT. And he made the point that overall, Zach is definitely a misogynist. We know this. We've seen that. And you know what? I felt bad because I should have been more clear that I agree with LT that yes, Zach has very problematic views about gender relations.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember what he was like on his season of The Real World San Diego version 2.0.
I do.
And he was super conservative. And I wasn't clear. I don't think I was clear enough on last week's episode of You Killed It that that shit doesn't fly with me, and I do imagine that on and that I sort of alluded to it in our conversation last week, that I do think that he still has that sexism. I imagine, and
the undertones are still there.
Yeah, the undertones are still there, and he even said last week, why do I always get partnered with a woman, as if it's a bad thing, which, I mean, and really, I dropped the ball last week by not pointing out that Amanda has really carried her weight.
Hell yeah.
On this season. You cannot look at Amanda and say that she's a liability.
I mean, other than the drinking and but gameplay, no. Definitely not.
Gameplay, no. And you know what? The drink, Zach is as much a liability in that respect. Not that he gets drunk, but that he's in the smaller alliance.
I see what you're saying.
The less powerful alliance.
No, that's fair.
So, and not that she tweeted at us, but Laurel Stuckey, who is a former partner of Zach and happens to be a woman, and arguably the most dominant challenge player of all time.
And probably a better challenge competitor than Zach, just straight up.
Yeah, straight up. I'd agree with that. She was having none of it on Twitter and was saying that Zach is sexist and a misogynist and complaining about women being partners is nonsense when he cost her a final.
This is
when
facts.
He was sucking air when they were trying to climb a mountain. So
That all
You
did
know,
happen. I remember that. That like honestly probably started my love affair with Laurel. Laurel is an absolute beast, and I'm not even exaggerating. I know there's people thinking that I'm probably exaggerating right now, but if you told me I could partner with either Laurel or Zach in a challenge, I'm taking Laurel. Like I'm not even.
oh
That's
yeah,
not
I take
hyperbole.
Laurel for sure.
That's not anything, right? So it was interesting to gain that perspective from someone who obviously had to deal with it. So I totally understand that side of it. But you know what it reminded me of, John? It reminded me
What's
of
that?
either think of like Ron Artest in the NBA, right? Or you know the Blue Jays, and they had that reputation for always arguing with the umpires. You know what I mean? And so when something happens, in this instance, you might actually be right, but reputation causes you to get tossed because
Yeah.
right? Because you're just used to people, you know, having that reaction. You're used to Ron Artest going a little too far, so you're going to call it a little differently. And I think that's what people are doing here with Zach. Because of his resume, because of his history, they were placing all of that on him in that decision instead of just looking at this as one singular move. But I think we'll get into that a little more because how this episode played out. But I did want to read some comments. Can I do that for a sec?
Yeah, of course.
So I put up the question in the challenge Reddit group, right? And it just said, does Amanda have the right to be mad at Zach, or was he just being a man of his word? So let's see. We had the Kyle David said, in my opinion, they both made the same decision as the other did, and neither of them can be mad at the other one without seeming like a bit of a hypocrite. Cam92 or CCam92 says, no, she didn't. She did the exact same thing. So the question could easily be reversed. Quote, does Zach have the right to be mad at Amanda, or was she just being a woman of her word? They did the same thing, stuck with their word, alliance, and what they think was best for their game. Problem is they just disagree on all of that. And another comment, I can't find it right now, but it was funny. It just said, maybe they should have just played rock, paper, scissors to decide.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really funny. But shout out to all the people that hit us up either on the Reddit page or the challenge Facebook group, or who just hit us up on Twitter to talk about the challenge, because we appreciate that a lot. We thank you for listening, and we love hearing other people's opinions about what's going on with the show, because there's sometimes things that we miss, right?
Yeah, we're not perfect. We're just close to it.
I see what you did there.
So on this week's episode of the challenge, Johnny Bananas, right off the top, recognizes that last week's episode was a disaster for his alliance. It was as bad as it could get, because he had basically, maybe not permanently, but he had worked out an understanding with Jose and Davon. Like, he could work with Jose and Davon. And obviously, Zach and Amanda leaving means that he's without Zach. Although it makes me wonder, like, it goes to show the flaws in Johnny Bananas' alliance, because, you know, on the one hand, you could say, like, yeah, he's got Zach and Amanda in his alliance, but he didn't really. He only half had it in, and because of Zach and Amanda being at this ongoing impasse, they, every time that they won a competition, which was often, they would nominate Jose and Davon, who are the other part of his alliance. Like, even within his alliance,
exactly,
they were sniping at each other, not out of dislike, but just because they had to.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how weak Johnny Bananas' alliance is. And on top of that, I mean, Cara Maria and Marie also sometimes were ineffective because they rarely agreed on things, at least at the start of the season. So Banana says, it's like we have an idiot pie and Devin and Corey are the cherry on top.
Some solid one-liners from Bananas during this episode. I can't lie.
Yeah, he was on point.
It kind of sucks too, because I feel like I take him for granted at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just used to all the one-liners, whereas if someone else said the exact same thing, I'd have like a much greater reaction. But I'm just like, Johnny, well played. Well played.
Yeah, well, he's going to be an interesting character from here on out, because he's basically in zero fucks mode, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
The only way he's going to get in the money is if he can somehow hold on long enough for the Lavender Ladies to totally self-destruct, which is possible.
Definitely possible. And as we've been saying for the longest time, right? Like, what's the best way, especially on this season of the challenge, to keep yourself out of the elimination is just win challenges. If you just win challenges, you're good.
Yeah. So, speaking of... sorry, that's a terrible segue.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I got you here.
We got more background from Corey and Devin on why they're here. Corey is fully leaning into, I got bills to pay because I have a kid. Mm-hmm. We could call that the Tony School of challenge reasons.
Yep.
And then Devin reveals something that we've known for some time on You Killed It, and that is he was supposed to be Banana's original partner on Final Reckoning, but that within his first day of arriving in Africa, he learned that his dad had died, I guess, while he was traveling. So he went home for the funeral and for all of that. And then he came back to compete in the show because he wants to make his dad proud. Mm-hmm. And like, I gotta say, I feel for Devin. As you know, my dad died very suddenly 5 years ago, so like there's a personal connection there. Mm-hmm. But also, in real time, between his dad dying and like where we are at this part of the show, it's probably only been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it can't be that
3
long.
weeks?
For sure. It can't be that long.
And when you consider the travel from Africa back to the United States, and then from the United States back to Africa, like that eats up like maybe 3 days total. Not counting like time with family. Like Devin is probably still very much in grieving at this point. So I just feel for him in general, but I'm also so glad to see him back. Like I would say Devin is my favorite challenge regular at this point. And I really like Corey too, as much as I rip on him for like always talking about his daughter now, or his famous like, I'm here, like these females, like,
yeah,
I do think Corey's an idiot, but I kind of love him, like, you know what I mean?
They're two very interesting but entertaining characters in two completely different ways, right? Like Devin is very funny with the one-liners. Devin is great in the confessionals. Devin is a great social player. Corey, on the other hand, comes in with the big bruising muscles all the time, and the Team Young Buck dynamic, like those dudes are just funny. Corey is always trying to shoot a shot not only with the ladies, but also with trying to get Bananas out of the house, trying to make big moves within the house. So they're both super entertaining characters. And so, of course, it's welcome. It's a welcome sight to have them on the show because it means shit's about to go down. So it's cool to see them for sure. And although they didn't really fit like too prominently during this episode, it was an interesting twist to kind of see this, right? Because Corey entering the house at this point, like right now, there's not that many teams left, so it's super serious. So, and there's not even that many. I don't know how many single women there are in the house for Corey to kind of, let's say, be distracted by, if that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, but I'm just saying it's way more likely for him if he comes in at the start of the show when there's a lot more castmates to choose from than now when, you know, the numbers are down a little, right? Because even if we jump to what happens next and there's a club scene, right? The club scene at this point isn't what it normally is, right? And
no.
There's not as many people, challenges are coming up, and people are salty. No?
Well, we should talk about the source of the saltiness.
Yes.
Is that, like, it seems like it's immediately after the Zach and Amanda, Corey and Devin, Davon and Jose double elimination. Like, it seems like it's within the hour. And I believe that normally when they film, they will do the competitions and then immediately go to the club. or like a quick stop at home so that people can change and then off to the club. Like it's usually the same night. And Marie is talking with the Lavender Ladies about like the ramifications of what just happened. And Sylvia points out that because Cara is allied with Johnny, Cara and Marie's partnership is a target.
For sure.
And they all basically, Marie's sort of like, yo, what the fuck are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Like, what are you saying to me right now? And they, like, Shane and Ashley are like, yeah, she has a point. And Marie says off camera, in confessional, that she finds the Lavender Ladies annoying, calls Sylvia a snake because they are friends. I mean, they've been on You Killed It together. Like, they are buds.
Yes.
And Sylvia says she's not sure which of Marie's personalities she's dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashley reinforces, like, Shane and Sylvia, walk off, I guess, because they don't want any part of this conversation or because they're going to get ready for the club or whatever. And Ashley basically reinforces to Marie, like, hey, yeah, mathematically speaking, you and Cara are next.
Yeah.
And then it's on to the club, which, as you said, very salty. Very, very different mood up in the club.
There's a couple things here that I skipped over, which is my bad, but I had a question for you, right? Because the Team Young Bucks celebration, they're like spilling beer all over the place, and I wondered who cleans that up.
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess someone from
production, really? That's kind of whack,
yeah.
You know? But anyways,
yeah.
Just something completely random that I was thinking about. But yes, onto this little debate here, right? Because this kind of seems to be the center of the episode. What are the Lavender Ladies going to do, and why are they just straight up targeting Marie and Cara? And I find it super interesting, and I wrote down this question for you, right? Now, I understand what the Lavender Ladies are saying, but do they have a choice here? Like, is this their only move, or is this, like, the best move for them to make? I'm posing this question to you, John.
Well, the only other... I mean, we keep saying the Lavender Ladies, but it's really a Lavender Ladies Team Young Bucks move.
Exactly.
Right? Like this, and as I said last week, and I should point out, many listeners agreed with me, they're the corporate ministry.
Okay.
The only other reasonable option that is on the table is voting for Corey and Devin.
See, I was going to agree with that. And here's the thing, right? Here's the one other gameplay move that I could see the Lavender Ladies making. Because, again, this whole thing is going to come down to who is winning challenges, right? And so if you are Sylvia and Joss, or even if you're Sylvia and Joss or Ashley and Hunter, right? And you look at it, and now you're also talking about Shane and Nelson. Those are the three main pieces of all this, right? Everyone else is kind of like a branch off, right? Now, if someone has to take out Bananas and Tony. So who's going to be more likely to take out Bananas and Tony? Like, I would be setting my focus on, okay, well, let's try to get Devin and Corey to try to take out Bananas and Tony. And whichever one of those teams come back, they come back, but at least we're getting rid of a strong team. That, to me, would be my MO, instead of trying to get out Marie and Cara. Like, who cares about that, right? Like, Marie and Cara aren't really threats to be winning challenges, so you would rather have them in because it gives your team a better chance of winning challenges, no? Like, I just didn't understand. Like, I get the numbers game aspect of it, but again, who's gonna win challenges? And it's not gonna be Joss and Sylvia, because we've seen them. They haven't been able to win challenges, right? It's not gonna be Hunter and Ashley, even though I think they did win a challenge. They won like the eating challenge or something, right? But yeah. I'm just saying it's more likely to be some of the other teams. And so with that said, you're going to be the ones on the chopping block. So why not use your numbers to try to take out Bananas and Tony, because you won't be able to do that yourself.
Yeah, I think their assumption is that at some point they're going to be in a competition. There's going to be a competition that Johnny and Tony don't succeed in. And I agree with you. In terms of most competitions, Corey and Devin are probably the top competition. Like, they're the most well-rounded team that remains. I think, though, as much as I just said that Corey and Devin are the only other option, I still actually think that Cara Maria and Marie are the best one for the Lavender Ladies, Young Bucks, to go against. Because obviously, Shane and Hunter are going to be Nelson and Hunter are going to be very reluctant to vote in Corey.
For sure. Like,
virtually a non-starter. And the Lavender Ladies, not that Devin's a part of... Devin's not a part of either the Young Bucks or the Lavender Ladies, but both of those squads like him. Mm-hmm. Right? Just like Joss is not a part of the Lavender Ladies or the Young Bucks, but no one dislikes him. Right? Like, no one is like, oh man, Joss has to go. Everyone's like, oh, Joss is fine.
No, for sure. I totally get it.
And so, it's Marie's taking it very personally, and I understand why. But, Cara Maria, they do not like. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
no. And
if you have the choice of Devin and Corey...
I understand all of that, but I feel like all you're doing by getting rid of that team, or trying to get rid of that team, is you're losing sight of getting rid of the other strong team so that you can win $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I understand why you would get rid of or why your focus is to get rid of Marie and Cara, but at the end of the day, I don't know. Is it worth it? That's all I'm saying. But anyways,
but also, you and I have talked about this for a few weeks now, that this day was going to come where, typically a final has 3 teams running.
Mm-hmm.
There was essentially 4 teams in the Lavender Ladies Alliance, and then when you toss in, I guess, both... Hunter and Ashley and Shane and Nelson are both combo teams. Mm-hmm. But at some point, there's going to be a team on the outside looking in. And we're at that point now.
But doesn't this just prove Zach's point even more? Because if Zach and Amanda are still there, right?
Yeah.
You have to make the argument, if you're Marie, well, what's the difference between me and Cara and Zach and Amanda? Right? Like, what's the difference? If anything, Zach and Amanda are probably the bigger threat because Zach is way tighter with Johnny Bananas and means more to Johnny Bananas and Tony's alliance than Cara and Marie do. Right? So doesn't this just prove Zach's point even more? Like, to me it does. Because automatically you're saying, like, the thought process is, well, it's got to be Marie and Cara because Cara's that tight with Johnny Bananas. So then why wouldn't the same thing have been said about Zach and Amanda?
Yeah. You're talking sense.
I try some points. I try. Redemption House. Does the Redemption House interest you in any way, shape, or form?
No. And I really... Seeing how many teams there are in the Redemption House, I really wish these people were all just gone. Right? And, like, it's annoying. I find it annoying that we have all this interesting political intrigue and personal drama in the main house, and that these teams are just sitting pretty and riding it out, and that one of them is going to come back in. And I really do think it's going to be Natalie and Polly that come back in. And I'm not interested in, like, I'm annoyed at the prospect that teams that I prefer in terms of personality are going to be, are going through, not hell, but going through this really difficult and interesting and intriguing time in the main house, while Natalie and Polly are basically coasting or any team in the Redemption House and might get in based off of literally luck of the draw. Like, I'm not...
And how crazy is that, right? Like, you could have a situation where the final could be made up of a team of mercenaries that came in halfway through, because it could be either
Yeah.
Hunter, Ashley, or Devin and Corey, or a team that's been chilling in the Redemption House half the time. Like, how completely unfair would that be for a team that's actually made it through the entire season to end up in the final with those two teams, right?
Well,
Crazy.
yeah, it could be all. It in theory could be a final run by those three teams.
Yeah.
Like, that's not impossible. It could come down to that.
Yeah, no, it's super
And
crazy.
I don't love that.
No,
I don't like
not at
that.
all. I totally agree with you there. The only thing to me that stood out from that scene was the shots of Zach's face. Like, man,
Yeah.
he
Well,
lost
he was
that
bleeding. Like, Zach was straight up bleeding
battle. Oh, it was
as
crazy.
they're talking.
And I do love that he's like, if my face isn't proof enough that she's the worst thing to ever happen to me in this game. Like, it's funny. Like, the Zach and Amanda reality show would be super funny.
It
Like
was
them-
interesting. And I will say it was interesting in the Redemption House that they had. That was like within an hour of the competition, right? And we know this because Zach is still bleeding.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see how much Amanda had calmed down. Like, she had sort of the look of someone who's like, shit, I fucked up. And, like, I mean, I don't think either one of them fucked up. I mean, obviously it cost them, but as you and I said last week, and we don't have to rehash that, but, like, they both stuck to their guns, and, like, I respect them more for it.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it was interesting that they weren't still bickering pretty much. Even
For
after
sure.
he took that shot at her, she was just sort of like,
Oh, yes. But super interesting stuff going on. But obviously, the big thing of the episode comes down to the actual challenge. Because for a couple teams, whether it's Cara and Marie, or for Johnny Bananas and Tony, if you don't win this challenge, there's a very good chance that you're going to be the one heading into the Armageddon, right?
Yep.
And what an interesting challenge that we got. Like, how big was the tower, John?
200 feet.
200 feet high. So there's this massive tower. You have to race up the stairs with your partner, and then one partner is propelled over the edge so you can look over and see a puzzle, and then you have to relay the info of said puzzle to your partner that's behind you on the roof so that your partner can put together said puzzle. Once a puzzle is completed, both of you will now rappel down the side of this tower to the ground. Fastest team wins, obviously, becomes a power team, and all that other fun stuff. John, what did you make of this challenge? Just looking at it before they started. What did you think? What did you make of this challenge?
I would not, like, I'm not bad with heights, but it was so high, just so we're clear, 200 feet is approximately 20 stories.
Jeez.
Yeah. That is at a height where when you're dangling like that, whether you're good with heights or not, your body is going to start to freak out. And
Also, just the positioning that some people had, it was super different, right? Like, you had some people that were kind of like standing almost upright, and then you had people that were fully like leaning over as if their body was parallel to the ground, right? And like that was kind of not parallel, but like close, right? You know what I mean? And that to me looked crazy. Like, I couldn't even imagine that, but no one really seemed to be thrown off by the heights, no?
No, and that's one thing I noted was Shane and Nelson were basically the second place team. They were very competitive, and Shane did not freak out.
No,
which is credit to Shane because like Shane is terrified of heights.
Yeah,
terrified, and like we didn't see him. I mean, he didn't. I don't think he enjoyed himself, but they were competitive. They were pretty fast. We didn't see him freak out at all. He was the one dangling over the edge and giving instructions to Nelson. Like, he was exposed to the height longer, which is not what I would have done. Like, I would have had Nelson hanging out there and keep Shane away from the height for as long as possible.
Yeah.
But it worked for them too. Like, they, I assume, talked about it, and I don't know. They made it work somehow, but
And then we didn't even mention yet like how you had to get down. Like that was hard too, right?
Yeah, you had to do. It's basically all arm strength. You had a rope and you had to pull yourself down. I think one of the low key toughest parts of this though was that they had to run, like your time begins from the bottom, and you had to run up 20 stories of stairs.
Yep.
To get, like, that's exhausting in itself.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of these teams were finishing that run up the stairs in, like, I think Johnny and Tony or Shane and Nelson did it in, like, a minute and a half.
It's crazy.
A minute and a half to climb 20 stories, 200 feet of stairs. That's insanely fast.
Yeah.
Like, we always knew that Shane and Nelson were in good shape, but that is very difficult. So to do that and then to, like, be composed enough to solve a puzzle and communicate with each other and then, like, pull yourself down 200 feet of rope, it's a very physical... I think what I'm trying to say in a very long-winded way is it's a really good, well-rounded competition.
Agreed. It was such a dope challenge, and it was cool to see. And the best part about it was you couldn't really predict who would do well at the certain parts of it, right? Because there's a communication aspect of it, right? Like who's going to panic while putting together the puzzle? Who's going to panic being able to describe what's going on while you're being dangled from this building? Like how would you communicate that to your partner? But then also, who was going to be good at now getting back down the side of this tower? Because you saw like Devin was like super crazy slow at it, right? Hunter was pretty good, but obviously, as you mentioned, it was all like upper body strength. So he was just beasting his way down. Shane and Nelson, Tony Bananas, they pretty much did a really good job. But then there was Marie, who like beasted Cara going down the side of this, which was kind of surprising, no? I was thrown by that, no?
I was surprised too. I think everyone was surprised. Sorry, Marie. No offense.
I think even Marie was surprised.
And it was also interesting the little sort of techniques that certain partnerships used to give themselves a benefit. Like, I thought Joss did something really smart where he sent Sylvia up ahead of him and he paused a minute to take a look at the puzzle.
Ah, okay.
And, like, it's smart because Joss is in not just better shape than Sylvia, but in better shape than literally everyone on Earth. So he was smart to be like, hey, you know what? I can take a second to maybe memorize a bottom row, and I can catch up to Sylvia.
Yeah.
Like, that's smart. And Marie helped Cara Maria by, like, pulling her down the hat. Like, she jumped up and grabbed Cara Maria by the leg and, like, pulled her down to make it, like... I know it's not going to make a huge difference, but it
but
does...
you never know.
You never know. You know, life is a game of inches. You gotta try to make up the time where you can. And it was smart. And again, you know, Shane and Nelson and Tony and Bananas were second and first, respectively. And I think the difference for both of them was that both those teams just killed it running up.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you could save yourself a minute and a half.
Are you also... I was going to say, are you
ahead.
also amazed by the budding bromance of Shane and Nelson? Like, that was a little much, no? Like, they seem to be... Like, they completely switched gears from being, you know, enemies to now Shane kind of like, hey, Nelson, you know?
Yeah.
I found that kind of funny. But it was also just like Nelson is so fired up, I think, because he finally not only has a good partner, but he's also managed to stay out of trouble for the most part. You know, like, and his friends are in the house, whereas normally his friends are eliminated early because they get into some kind of problems or something happens. But now you're more than halfway through the game. You have a good partner. You're competing well. You're doing a good job with your partner. And your boys are in the house. Nelson just seems to be like super happy.
The the greatest thing to ever happen to the Young Bucks was that Corey missed the first 2/3 of the season.
It's true. It's definitely true. It's so true. But I mean, it was just funny to watch these two people who couldn't stand each other, and then now watch them like laughing and joking around, and they're all buddy and making inside jokes, and Nelson alluding to, I don't know, it's kind of like maybe we're in like a pseudo relationship or something. Like, it's just funny to watch them joke around about all that shit, right? But at the same time, who did you think won? Like, I honestly was convinced that Shane and Nelson were going to win. That's what I thought was going to happen.
You mean like when everyone had completed it? That's what you thought? And like we were waiting for I thought it was Tony and Bananas.
Really? Another question for you, though. What did you make of, while Tony and Bananas were going, everyone else just yelling randomly from the bottom, from like on the ground, actually? Just yelling while they're trying to communicate to each other the puzzle pieces.
I think it all, as was brought up, all's fair in love were in the challenge. Mm-hmm. And I think that obviously they won, so it didn't really disrupt them. Like, I think it was just an annoyance more than anything. I thought Johnny Bananas overreacted when he got down to the ground. Like,
so that's my thing. He was
so pissed.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like, I was with Johnny Bananas in the sense that, like, I just thought it was a lame move. Like, I don't think that it would really have an effect. I think it makes you just look like an idiot, first off. But also, it just made them, like, it didn't, I don't think it had an effect. Like, I think it's just ridiculous. Like, you'd obviously be able to decipher someone who's 5 feet away from you as opposed to someone who's 200 feet away from you on the ground, right? So I don't really think it served much of a purpose other than to show, hey, we're just going to try to be super annoying. So I was totally with Johnny Bananas until he got back to the ground and then, like, chewed them out for it, called them out on it, right? Like, I thought that was kind of weak because it was like, he didn't need to do that. Like, you already, quote unquote, won this situation. And I don't mean won the challenge. I just mean, I think they looked lame in what they were trying to do to you. Am I making sense?
Yeah, and you could tell from everyone's reactions when they touched down that they knew they'd lost.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was also super weird how when they announced that Johnny Bananas and Tony won, they had no reaction at all. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, just because like Johnny Bananas and Tony had no reaction, or everyone just kind of like gave a polite clap and that was it.
Well, that was funny, but I mean, Johnny Bananas and Tony didn't really have a reaction. They kind of just like stood there, like they didn't celebrate. Whereas, as Bananas was describing, if Nelson and Shane won, it would have been the most obnoxious celebration ever, right? So I'm not saying Bananas and Tony had to do that. I was just surprised they didn't even like really high five or anything, or like, yeah, fist pump, right? Like,
no,
not even a mild Tiger Woods fist pump.
Well, at this point, they also know, like, Johnny Bananas has done the math. He knows that him winning means he's not going to be able to save Cara Maria and Marie.
Yeah.
His partnership lives to see another day, but his alliance is officially gone. Mm-hmm. And, he knows that it's time to put in work. Like, he has to make it to the final, and he's going to somehow have to eliminate 2 more teams to get there, 3 more teams to get there, and, like, he probably knows on some level that the Redemption House is still a thing. Yeah. So, like, it's I mean, you and I had this debate before, but it's like the Barry Sanders thing, like, yeah, we won this, but we haven't won the whole thing.
Yeah. No, totally. And it definitely is that situation where, like, he does have to pump the brakes, because what does it really mean? You just saved yourself for a little while, right? Don't even know how that's all going to play out. But so they win. We know that they have the power vote, but the Lavender ladies, as Sylvia points out, really hold all the cards, right? Because they're going to be able to pick who's going to essentially be going in. And again, as I was saying, this is a message to Amanda, and all the Amanda supporters and all the people that were mad at Zach for doing what he did, right? Like, they were next up on the block. Like, if this plays out where Marie and Cara go out this week, what do you think was going to happen next week? The next people on the chopping block, if it's not Bananas and Tony, it was going to be Amanda and Zach. But anyways, this leads to an argument, right? You get the club, and now you add in alcohol, and Marie and Sylvia and Shane. And Marie is basically doing rounds. You can tell there's, as a wise man once said, when the Remy's in the system, right? And Marie is now basically going to each one of them and kind of just starting an argument with them to plead her case, but also say, like, why are you guys putting me in? I thought we were friends. Like, is there something else we could do? Blah, blah, blah. What did you make of this scene, John? Like, were you annoyed by it? Did you understand where she was coming from? Do you think she was going too far? What were your thoughts here?
I had sympathy for her. Like, you know, I also understand where her friends are coming from, where they're, like, it is what it is. It sucks. They probably could have broken the news to her in a better fashion. Mm-hmm. I don't blame her for going around to try to be like, yo, this is fucked up. I wouldn't do this to you.
Yeah.
You know, I had sympathy for both sides.
Same. Like, I totally understood it from both sides because I as I mentioned earlier, right? Do I think there's another play that the Lavender Ladies crew could make? Of course. I would have the Team Young Bucks dudes try to take out Bananas and Tony. That would be my play on how I would work this out, because I feel like with my team I'd have a better chance against Cara and Marie as opposed to any of the Team Young Buck dude like Devin and Corey. And also someone, I don't know if it was online or if it was you on this podcast, everything's kind of becoming a blur, but someone else made the point that you could even rationalize throwing in Hunter and Ashley in the sense that, hey, you guys are mercenaries. Like, we've all been here from the beginning. You guys just got here. You guys kind of got to, like, earn your stay a little more. Like, that could be, while not a great argument, an argument that I would understand, that I think other people would be able to understand and relate to, because, again, it's completely not fair if you're Sylvia and Joss, or if you're Nelson and Shane, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, wait a second, why am I even considered as being the same as Ashley and Hunter when they just got here?
Yeah.
Right? So it was interesting. But with that said, I will say Marie went a little overboard, right? Like, she kept going, and at that point you're in a situation where you're not going to hear what you want. Right? Like, whatever it is that you're trying to get them to say, you know, like, they're not going to say to you. So it's better to get out what you need to get out and then move on, right? So if that was, you're calling them shady, you're calling them fake friends, and that's what you need to get out in that moment, cool. Get that done. But then it went there, and it got weird. Her and Sylvia having a little face-off, which, as fans of You Killed It, as you mentioned, John, they both appeared on our podcast together as friends. How difficult was it to watch them near fight?
Yeah, it was difficult to see. It seems from Twitter like their friendship is okay. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we point this out. There's some alcohol. There's some Remy in the system. Mm-hmm. They were probably not sober. And, you know, sometimes friends fight. But it's been hard to see because Marie, who I really like, has been fighting with her friends a lot this season. Like, this is not the first time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I was funny. I was watching their argument. I'm like, neither one of them's really making a point. Like, they're just angry and upset, and probably embarrassed.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think whenever people get into a fight, there's that element of embarrassment might be the thing that pushes them over the edge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely. And they got to the point where it got physical, right? Like, they're up in each other's faces, and I'm with Marie in the sense of, like, okay, what are you doing? Like, you're not stepping to me like that. You're not going to put your hand in my face. Like, what are we doing right now, right? Like, I'm not going to back down if that's what you're waiting for. And then Sylvia kind of gave her, like, the little brush back headbutt, or what's being called a headbutt, but it wasn't really. Do you know what I mean? It was a thing, but
it's not a Zidane headbutt. It was a head push.
Okay.
She guided, and you know what? It was funny in all the previews. They showed Sylvia's quote unquote headbutt, but what actually happened was like Marie made contact first, like she went nose to nose
for sure,
and I'm not comparing the two things exactly, but it's definitely like Marie escalated it, Sylvia escalated it a little bit more. Some people have been saying that, hey, the fight between Kayla, did I say that right? I feel like
Kayla,
and Melissa was about the same level, and they got kicked off. Why weren't...
I disagree.
I don't think it's the same.
I disagree with that.
I think Sylvia came right up to the line, but it wasn't nearly as bad. And after that, they immediately split up and separated.
Yeah, they were just swearing at each other, and then, it was funny to see them both in the confessionals, and Marie says if she touches me again, she's like, first off, that headbutt was weak as fuck, and if she touches me again, I will kill her. That's my warning. I was like, wow, okay. Again, I see it from both sides. It was probably more liquor-induced than anything. Marie grasping at straws, trying to save herself from the elimination, but, the decision was made from the Lavender Ladies, and that's what ended up happening. But that led us to the actual voting ceremony, which we don't really need to get too far into because we already know what happens, but we did see Cara and Marie share a moment. Did that touch you? Did that make you feel all warm and tingly inside, John?
It did, and it was weird to see. It was weird to see them, and that was definitely a very genuine, sincere moment, and I really liked that it came about because Cara sort of accidentally called Marie her friend.
Ah, yes.
And then Marie was like, "Wait, did you just call me your friend?" and then they really both teared. It was really sweet to see. But then on the other hand, I think back to everything I've seen on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Where they have just been at each other's throats, and Kayla actually said on Twitter yesterday, "I don't understand their relationship." And I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what she said, but I don't understand, because they have been vicious with each other on Twitter, absolutely vicious. So did they have another? Between that coming together and this where we are in real life now, did they have another blow up or
so here's the thing. So we are obviously we've talked about it. They're the ones that end up going in. They make the big time move, which we can get to, right? They make the big time move and pick who they're going against, right? Mm-hmm. I think that they win because there was a clip, unless I'm being completely hoodwinked here by the producers, but there's a clip in the next week on that has Cara talking about someone's feet. I can only see their feet and what's going on. Cara talking about a challenge. And I'm like, wait a second, they're about to go into an elimination. And so how could Cara still be around to be talking about the next challenge unless they win the upcoming elimination?
Yep.
Did you catch that too, or no?
I caught that. Well, I caught that too, but on top of that, I've been saying for months now that I think Polly and Natalie are going to earn their way back in.
Yeah.
Because we know that Polly and Cara hooked up some point this season. So if we can bank on Polly and Natalie getting back into the house, we can bank on Cara and Marie sticking around. Of course, the reverse of that is maybe Cara and Marie lose
and go to the redemption house. Yes.
And then Cara and Polly do the bang bang dance there.
I can't see it happening, but man, I would love to see Marie and Cara take out Shane and Nelson. Like that would be just an amazing upset. Even though like we don't even really know what the elimination is, but either way, like just the way that it went down, I love the look on Nelson's face when they picked them. Because I mean, I don't know if that's who I would have picked, but I love their reasoning behind it. Right? It's like, fuck it, let's just go big and let's try to take out a big team. And also, they're finally using the twist that we've been talking about this whole year, right? Which is they've been forced to make a lot of these eliminations. They've been forced to make them, gender neutral. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
And so why not take a chance? Because it's not like you're going to have to go up physically against Shane and Nelson. So it is, you know what I mean? Like they're not the big imposing team that you would normally not want to go against. It's just Shane and Nelson. So they could either mess up a puzzle. They could either like be bad with communication, like whatever it is. I like the move. I like the move that they made because I think I would have went at Hunter and Ashley. That would have been my pick. But hey, if you take down Shane and Nelson, that's a big boy move coming back into the house. Or sorry, I should say a big girl move coming back into the house. My bad.
I think that when like after the vote, Cara and Marie are talking, and Cara says, "No, you know what? Fuck it. Let's put in some work. Like whatever. We can do this."
I like it.
And in that little conversation, Cara said something that you and I have been saying all along, which is, look at what the competition, like what it appears to be, and then make your decision on who you're going to call in based off of that.
Yes.
And we didn't see a lot of it, but it looked like it's a maze. And I think that Nelson and Shane are the right pick in what seems like a puzzle communication-based competition.
Yes.
Because although they're getting along, or we're getting along in that one competition, neither one of them is a killer when it comes to puzzles.
Agreed.
Shane is probably the stronger one of the two at puzzles, but he's not as good as either Cara or Marie at puzzles. And if you look at all those teams, which teams would be the worst at communication? I'd say the two worst at communication of the Lavender Ladies Young Bucks Alliance, the corporate ministry, would either be Shane and Nelson or Hunter and Ashley. The thing is, Ashley is super good at puzzles. And also, I mean, Sylvia and Joss, Sylvia's really good at puzzles. So you don't want to bring Sylvia or Ashley into a puzzle situation. Shane and Nelson, or Devin and Corey, you don't want to bring Devin into a puzzle situation. So by process of elimination, Shane and Nelson probably are the best pick for what it looks like. And like they got a better look at whatever the competition is. They got a better look than we did, the viewer. But I think that's a big factor, is that they're like, this plays to Shane and Nelson's weaknesses.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can exploit that, and I think it's true what they said, that like we're trying to lop the head off the snake, and like see what we get, and like I think they might win. In any event, it'll be a very interesting challenge. It'll be a very interesting competition.
No, for sure. I totally agree. I can't wait to see what happens next. This was a really dope episode, I thought, just because there's a lot going on, a lot of strategy behind it, a really good challenge, some beef, some arguing. The Redemption House was kept to a minimal, right?
Yes.
A minimum. Wow, I can't speak. But at least I got my voice back, right? Small beginnings.
Yes.
Small, humble beginnings. Let's go. But yeah, I thought it was a great episode.
What was, for you, the quote of the episode?
My quote from the episode is pretty simple. It's going to go to TJ Lavin, who, when they announced, when Cara and Marie are up there and they're trying to figure out what's going on or who they're going to pick, and they're like fired up. They're ready to go. And Marie said something to that effect, right? Like, yeah, let's go, I'm ready. And TJ says, wow, Marie, that's a far cry from your normal cigarettes and sadness. I was like, yep, that sounds like the name of a podcast right there. Cigarettes and Sadness. I was like, well played, TJ Lavin. And even Marie commented on it too. She commented on it on Twitter last night. And she just kind of like, oh, okay. So she said, quote, cigarettes and sadness, laughing emoji at TJ Lavin, shot me dead with that one. I remember being like, thanks. I thought that was a great line by TJ.
It was an awesome line. I already quoted it. I really like Johnny Bananas. It's like we have an idiot pie and Devin and Corey are the cherry on top. I like that. I also like that Johnny Bananas said, he was on fire this episode.
He was.
That he said that Devin is like a geriatric patient that escaped from an old folks home.
That one was really good too. That one was really good. Johnny Bananas was on fire during this episode. The other thing I found like super hilarious about this episode though, and I'm getting this out of the way because this is not my MVP, but Marie was hilarious to me because I've been told that sometimes when I'm in an argument with someone, I'm being passive aggressive. And I'm always like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And what I've been told is that sometimes someone else is getting mad, and as they continue to get more mad, I remain calm, which just ends up pissing them off even more. And I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just like, why am I getting louder? Like, there's no point in getting louder. We're having a conversation. We're having a disagreement. You're yelling. I don't need to yell. And then I'll be like, why are you yelling? Like, there's no need to yell. And I think I'm being normal, and I'm just like looking at you like you're crazy. But I've been told that that's very passive aggressive and really annoys people when you're arguing with them. Okay. I've heard that before, and I was kind of like, okay, whatever. When I watch this episode and you just look at the side eye that Marie's giving while she's like going at whether it was Shane, whether it was Ashley, whether it was Sylvia especially, but they're like yelling at each other, going at each other, and then every once in a while Marie will like take a beat and just like look away and like smile like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you can just see Sylvia, just seething even more, and I'm like, oh, is that what they're talking about? Like, it actually hit me while I was watching it. It just made me laugh so much because it's not something that I'm doing purposely. It's just funny to me sometimes when you're arguing with someone and they're not making sense and they're not really in control. They're just now trying to argue with you, but like you're still about your wits. So you're like, really? Is that what you're saying right now? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. And they're like, why are you saying I'm not making sense? I'm like, because you're not making sense. Right? But do you know what I'm saying though, John?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just found that funny.
It is funny. So that does beg the question though, who killed it for you this week?
I'm got to give it to Johnny Bananas and Tony. And I know I'm picking two people, which is kind of a cheat. But the reason why is because, listen, all eyes on me. If they don't win, they're going in. And they stepped up to the plate. Everyone was doing like the lame ass like yelling and shit at them while they were competing. And they were able to come out with the victory. And it goes back to what we've been saying from the start of the season. Because of the weird twist of the Armageddon, the most important thing more than ever is just winning challenges, because that's the only way to make sure that you're not in the Armageddon. I mean, unless you're Zach and Amanda. But
yeah.
the best way to make sure that you're not in the Armageddon is to win challenges. And now Tony and Bananas with their backs up against the wall, and we talked about it last week, no? That this would be the key. They're going to try to get out Bananas and Tony, but they're going to be hard to beat in these competitions. And so, hey, at least for 1 week, they were able to back up the tough talk and keep themselves safe. But from here on out, they'll have to just keep doing it over and over again. But for this week, they did, and they killed it for me.
I agree with you completely that Tony and Bananas killed it this week. They would also be my pick. But I have to point out that what Johnny Bananas and Tony are attempting to do right now, it's totally possible. I think my favorite season of the challenge, and I've said this on previous episodes of You Killed It, to me is the start of the modern challenge is Fresh Meat 2, the one that took place in our home and native land, Canada, Whistler,
Okay.
BC.
Mhm.
Opposite side of the country, but still, it counts. Where Kenny and Laurel, this was Laurel and Cara's introductory seasons, but Kenny and Laurel had their entire alliance basically whittled down by Wes and his
Yeah.
alliance.
Yeah.
And Kenny and Laurel won something like 6 or 7 eliminations
No, I remember.
just to survive.
Yeah.
And Johnny Bananas and Tony don't even have to do that. Like, let's say Marie and Cara Maria beat Shane and Nelson.
Mhm.
That leaves Ashley and Hunter, Devin and Corey, Joss and Sylvia, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly the numbers are just 3-2. And let's say Johnny Bananas and Tony win again on the next episode. Suddenly, they can't, if Cara Maria and Marie and Johnny Bananas and Tony just sync up their votes with the power vote, or, I mean, maybe Marie and Cara Maria also, maybe they're the ones to win the power vote. But if their alliance get the power vote again,
Mhm.
they can outvote the Lavender Ladies and the Young Bucks. Like, it's that close. They just have
sure.
to, like, hold on for 1 or 2 competitions, and then they've made it.
And also, this is where the Redemption House, whoever the team is that comes back, that becomes so key. What side of the house that person will fall on, right? It'll be super interesting to see.
If it's Brad and Kyle,
Yeah.
totally swings things back in favor. If it's Zach and Amanda, maybe swings things back in their favor. Jose and Davon could swing things back. Polly and Natalie could swing things back. Like, Johnny Bananas is on the ropes. Johnny Bananas and Tony, I should say, are on the ropes, but they're
they
not
won't
done.
be. Well, Natalie and Polly would not be on their side.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
But like, they're
I mean, who
not
knows?
the Lavender Ladies hate Natalie, and Polly and
you know
Cara
what? That's
Maria
That.
are
Oh yeah,
sort of
yeah,
an
yeah.
alliance.
No, you're right. You're right. I take it back.
And like, they might be willing to do business.
Yeah. Nope.
That's
you're
what
right.
matters, right?
You're right.
So it's exciting times in the challenge.
Yeah, another great episode. Let's go. Business is picking up. This is like the money time right now on the challenge, and I'm enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad I got my voice back, and yeah, it's great doing the pod again, man. Feeling normal doing the pod.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad to hear that you're all healed up. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander, and of course, check out the YouTube content. Just search "You Killed It," the Challenge Podcast on YouTube to find some of our YouTube content over there. And yeah, shout out to everyone that's listening. And of course, we got a bunch of On Blast stuff going as well, John. You know, we got football picks every week, and if that's your thing, we got a basketball podcast also going, if that's your thing. So check it all out. Lots of stuff going on.
You are on that hustle. I always respect that.
I try. I fail, but I try.
Listeners can find me on Twitter and Instagram at jchidleyhill. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm about to embark on going to 4 weddings in 3 weeks.
Woo.
So lots of photos of me in suits and lots of Instagram stories of me dancing and singing badly. And then on Twitter, I know I'm covering golf today, but who knows what else is in the future. Probably some Leafs and some Raptors.
Hey,
so
let's go.
Yeah, exciting times in God's country up in Toronto for our sports teams.
Let's go.
Until next week, though, this was You Killed It.
You killed